Electronic health records, or EHRs, are among the most personal and confidential records that one can have. It would be reasonable to assume that given the personal nature of these records, that security for these records would reflect their importance. The terrifying reality is that people's records are in general not adequately protected. The safeguards put in place are antiquated and have proven to be ineffective. Let's imagine a common scenario that we have all experienced. Going to the doctor. This is Alice. She has not been feeling well the past few days. She has a sore throat and a mild fever. She decides to visit her doctor, Dr. Bob, and talk to him about her symptoms. Dr. Bob listens to her symptoms and does some tests, and confirms that Alice has strep throat. Bob prescribes some medication, and Alice, eager to get better, goes to the pharmacy and picks up her medication right away. Alice takes the medicine, and in a week, she feels back to normal. Alice's scenario is one that most people here in the United States have experienced. The surprising thing is the volume of personal health records this simple trip to the doctor's office produces. Alice's EHRs could be accessed by multiple people and organizations. Dr. Bob and many employees at the clinic will have access to these records, as does the pharmacy, Alice's insurance company, possibly Alice's employer, as could a government agency, and of course, finally Alice herself. Adding further concern, all these electronic records could be stored on multiple servers with varying levels of security. When all these factors are combined, we are presented with a situation that is a security nightmare with many access points and methods that Alice's EHRs could be compromised. You may be wondering at this point how all this data could possibly be secured. Well, for the purposes of this broad overview on EHR security, we are going to focus on one nationwide security policy, HIPAA. HIPAA stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. HIPAA's security rules were last updated in 2003. These rules implement basic security practices, including server hardware specifications, when and how encryption is to be used, establishing proper use and disclosure of data, and finally, methods to do security audits. But as one can imagine, there are some glaring security problems with HIPAA. As I said earlier, HIPAA was last updated in 2003, and in that time, security has changed drastically. To give an example of the age of these policies, HIPAA states that records transmitted over dial-up connections need not be encrypted because dial-up is already a, quote, relatively secure method of transmission. A second issue is that HIPAA is also extremely vague. It states multiple times that security must be, quote, reasonable. However, it fails to specify how exactly one knows what reasonable security entails. In short, HIPAA has helped create a climate where health record security breaches are commonplace. And now Jason will go over in more detail some of those breaches.
In 2015 alone, there were 10 major healthcare data breaches which added up to almost 112 million records stolen. That is roughly one-third of the United States population. For example, the Anthem hack in 2015 contributed to almost 80 million other records stolen. Even though they found that no actual medical information was stolen, names, birthdays, social security numbers, addresses, and employment data, including income, might have been stolen. That is more than enough information to open credit cards and other forms of identity theft. Experts say the hack was possible because Anthem did not encrypt the data once it was stored. This attack was most likely the result of a phishing attack. A phishing attack is when attacks seem as if they are legitimate but are actually gaining information from the recipient. The hackers most likely targeted high-level members in Anthem and used their credentials to access the information. While others had similar breaches, they could have been caused by phishing or a number of different ways, such as other forms of social engineering. There are a number of ways to prevent these kinds of attacks. The first fix is with HIPAA. HIPAA does not require encryption once information is stored on servers. There needs to be better standards that are required and not just optional. The broad detail that HIPAA provides in its security rule gives the basics, but leaves a lot of it to interpretation for the individual company. There also needs to be separation of data. Health information needs to be stored with other health information, while PII needs to be stored with PII. Besides the technical side of cybercrimes, there needs to be education for employees. They need to be able to recognize phishing attacks and other forms of social engineering. Experts have stated that about 75% of security breaches happen from the inside. This doesn't mean that an employee is deliberately causing the breach, but they were the recipient of a scheme to get their information which could be used by the hackers to initiate the attack. Healthcare providers do not have sufficient security for the sensitive information that they hold. We need better regulations and more specific rules that these types of companies must comply with. The HIPAA security rule needs to be updated, and these providers need to enforce and update their security more often. These entities need to know that their consumers want better care of their sensitive information.
That concludes our broad overview of electronic health record security. This video was created by 3 Indiana University security students, Scott Cirk, Jason Fow, and Brady Davies. If you are interested in further reading, some useful resources have been provided in the video description. And of course, thanks for watching.